Until he was. Funny, isn't it? How the person you're supposed to keep the furthest ends up being the one who sees you most clearly. It wasn't supposed to happen. It was never planned. We weren't sneaking around or sending secret texts. No red lipstick on a collar. No perfume trails in the hallway. It was more dangerous than that. It was attention. It was laughter. It was the way he said my name when no one else did. The way he looked at me and actually saw me not as a wife or a mom, but as a woman. And maybe that's what I was hungry for. Not sex. Not adventure. Just being seen. Being remembered. Being someone's moment again. We never kissed in the beginning. We didn't touch. But you don't need touch for things to burn. Some fires start with a glance. Some betrayals don't even need skin. I wish I could tell you this is a story about temptation. But it's not. It's about connection, craving, guilt, and the terrifying truth that sometimes the heart wanders not because it wants to, but because it's tired of being forgotten. I didn't cheat with a stranger. I didn't fall for a fling. I became my husband's best friend's secret. And I still don't know who I betrayed more, my husband or myself. If you've ever found yourself torn between what's right and what's real, if you've ever craved something you couldn't explain, then don't look away now. Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold, because here, we don't just tell stories. We unravel the messy, complicated truth of the human heart. One broken line at a time. We'd been married for 8 years. Long enough for the wedding photos to fade, for the anniversaries to feel more like reminders than celebrations. I had 2 kids. A home. A life most people would call stable. From the outside, it probably looked perfect. But inside, it felt like I was fading. My husband, David, he used to make me laugh. He used to hold my hand while we cooked. He used to listen. Now, he worked late, traveled often, ate dinner with one hand on his phone, the other barely touching his plate. He wasn't cruel, just distant. Like the light in him had been dimming slowly, and I hadn't noticed until it was almost out. I stopped asking where he was going. I stopped waiting up for him. I stopped talking, because what was the point in speaking if no one was really listening? I smiled out of habit, took care of the kids, folded the laundry, went to sleep early just so I wouldn't have to feel the weight of lying next to someone who barely looked at me. I slept facing the wall, every night, like I was trying to disappear. And then, there was Ethan, David's best friend since college. Charismatic, loud in a way that drew people in. Still single, still free. He had this energy about him, like he wasn't weighed down by routine the way we were. He'd stop by often. Sometimes to drop off tools. Sometimes to help with the garage. Sometimes just to say hi to the kids. At first, it felt normal. Friendly. Harmless. But slowly, I noticed the way his eyes lingered a little too long when I talked. The way he remembered things I didn't even know I'd said. Like how I take my tea. Or the song I used to hum while washing dishes. It was subtle. Too subtle to call out, but too strong to ignore. And it made me feel something I hadn't felt in years. Seen. He laughed at my jokes. Asked about my day. Listened like it mattered. Like I mattered. I didn't realize how starved I was for attention until I started craving Ethan's. And that scared me more than anything. Because once you've tasted being noticed again, it's hard to go back to feeling invisible. David left on a Tuesday morning. He kissed the kids goodbye, gave me a distracted smile, and said he'd be back by Sunday evening. 5 days. Just 5 days. I'd gotten used to these trips, packing his bag in silence, watching him rush out the door without checking if I was okay. He called them work obligations. I called them breathers. The first 2 days were quiet. Routine. School drop-offs, reheated leftovers, bedtime stories read half asleep. I wasn't expecting anything different, but on Thursday night, Ethan stopped by. He said he was just dropping off a wrench David had left at his place. I opened the door, still in sweatpants, hair tied up, mascara smudged from the night before. He smiled like I was glowing. The kids were already in bed. The house was dim, the kind of quiet that makes you feel a little too alone. He lingered in the kitchen, saying he hadn't had dinner yet. I offered him some leftover lasagna. He joked that I was saving his life one carb at a time. I poured us each a glass of wine. Not because I planned to, just because it felt easier than asking him to leave. We sat on the couch. The TV was on, but neither of us were watching. He looked at me, really looked, and said, "That dress, it suits you. Brings out your eyes." It wasn't even a fancy dress. Just something soft I liked wearing around the house. But suddenly, I felt exposed. Nervous. Flattered. I laughed. Too long. Too loud. I think I was trying to break the tension, only I didn't realize there was tension until that moment. Then the room went quiet. He didn't look away. His eyes searched mine like he was waiting for permission I didn't even know I could give. And then he said it. Just like that. "You deserve more than you're getting." My heart skipped. I couldn't breathe right. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. It wasn't the words themselves. It was the way he said them, like he meant them. Like he knew. And I hated how good it felt to hear it. I looked away. Reached for my glass like it could shield me. My hands were shaking. He didn't touch me. Didn't lean in. But something passed between us. Heavy. Unspoken. Unforgettable. That moment. It wasn't loud. It didn't scream. But it marked a shift. A beginning I didn't see coming. It should have ended with that wine glass. But that night rewrote everything. I didn't sleep much that night. I laid there in bed, staring at the ceiling, going over every word, every look, every second of silence between us. I kept telling myself it was nothing. Just a moment. Just wine and weariness. Two lonely people sharing space. But the truth? I couldn't stop thinking about the way he looked at me. Like I mattered. Like he saw me. Like he was asking a question I didn't have the courage to answer. The next morning, David called. His voice came through the phone like it always did, tired, busy, distracted. He asked about the kids. Said his meeting ran long. Promised to call again tomorrow. He didn't ask how I was. And I didn't offer. I stood in the kitchen after the call, phone still in my hand, heart in my throat. I felt stupid. Guilty. Excited. Confused. Like I was carrying a secret I hadn't meant to pick up, but couldn't put down. I kept telling myself nothing happened. That it was just a look. Just words. But it stayed with me, like a warmth in my chest that wouldn't go away. And the worst part? I didn't want it to go away. I started seeing things in rewind, flashes of moments I had ignored. The way Ethan always sat a little too close. The way his eyes lingered just a second longer than they should have. The way he always found a reason to touch my arm when he laughed. And the way I never pulled back. Had I been blind or had I been pretending? One afternoon, he came by to drop off a package David had left at his place. I opened the door, hair down, a little makeup on, nothing dramatic. Just enough to feel different. I told myself I was doing it for me. But I knew. I caught him looking again. That same look. And this time, I didn't look away. I hated myself for it. And still, I waited for the next time he'd come by. I told myself I was lonely. That I wasn't doing anything wrong. That attention isn't the same thing as betrayal. But it felt like a betrayal. To David. To my kids. To myself. And yet, when Ethan wasn't around, I felt hollow. When he was, I felt alive. I started dressing nicer. Fixing my hair more. I told myself it was about self-care. About feeling good in my own skin again. But it wasn't. It was for him. And every time I caught him looking, that little spark inside me, guilt-ridden and electric, it lit up all over again. I wanted to stop. I wanted it to mean nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was validation. It was warmth. It was a reminder that somewhere underneath the title of wife and mother, I was still a woman. And that terrified me. I used to think cheating was a single act, a moment, a decision. But now I wasn't so sure, because I hadn't touched him, hadn't kissed him, hadn't crossed that line. But in my mind, I already had. Was I cheating? Or was I just waking up? It started small, like most dangerous things do. Ethan began stopping by more often. Said he just wanted to help while David was away, fix the broken light in the garage, mow the lawn, carry heavy groceries from the car. I could have said no, but I didn't. Every time he offered, I let him in. And every time he walked through that door, the air shifted. Not in a loud way. Not in a way anyone else would have noticed. But I did. My body did. He started finding reasons to touch me. A hand on my back as he passed behind me in the kitchen. Fingers brushing mine as he handed me a plate. Palming my shoulder like it was the most natural thing in the world. Innocent. Always innocent. Always just enough to leave me wondering. I started lingering in the doorway when he left, watching him walk to his car, wondering if he'd turn around. And then, one night, the power went out. A storm had rolled in quickly. Thunder rattled the windows. The lights blinked twice, then everything went black. I lit candles. The kids were already asleep. Ethan had come by earlier to drop something off for David, but the rain came down so hard, I told him to wait it out. We sat in the living room, surrounded by flickering candlelight. The shadows danced across the walls. The wine was already open. I didn't remember pouring it. But somehow our glasses were full. We sat in silence. Not awkward. Just heavy, charged. He was watching me again. And I wasn't pretending not to notice. He leaned in. Slowly, like he was giving me a chance to stop it. And I did. But not really. I pulled back. Just enough to keep us on this side of the line. But I didn't tell him to leave. I didn't ask him what he was doing. And he didn't apologize. He just smiled. Like he knew something I hadn't admitted yet. The next morning, I couldn't stop shaking. I burned the toast. I snapped at the kids. I stood under the shower for 20 minutes, just trying to feel normal again. But the water didn't wash it away. And when Ethan texted later to say, "Let me know if you need anything," I stared at the screen for 10 whole minutes, before replying, "Thanks." I should have told him not to come by again. I didn't. Instead, I told myself we were still okay. That it was just a close call. That we were both adults who knew where the line was. But the line kept moving. A few days later, my son said something I'll never forget. He was watching me as I made breakfast, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. He said, "Uncle Ethan smiles more when you're here, Mom. Like he really likes being around you." I laughed it off, swallowed the lump in my throat. But that night, I dreamed about Ethan. Not in a scandalous way. Not even in a sexual way. In the dream, he was just holding me. Just holding me. In the dark. Saying nothing. Just warmth. Just presence. I woke up with tears in my eyes. Something had changed, and I was pretending it hadn't. David left again. Another last-minute trip. Another rushed goodbye in the hallway. He kissed my cheek and said he'd call from the airport. He didn't. I watched his car disappear down the street. And, for a moment, I just stood there. In the silence. Not sad. Not angry. Just hollow. That night, Ethan came over. He brought takeout. Said he figured I hadn't eaten yet. He was right. I let him in without thinking. No makeup. No pretense. Just me, tired and worn and barely holding it together. We sat on the couch, boxes of food unopened between us. The TV played something neither of us were watching. And then I started crying. I didn't plan to. It just happened. All of it poured out, my loneliness, my exhaustion, the ache of being needed by everyone but wanted by no one. I told him I felt like a ghost in my own life. He didn't say anything at first. Just moved closer. Then, gently, he reached out and wiped my cheek with his thumb. And that was it. That simple touch undid everything I'd tried to hold together. He leaned in. I didn't stop him. And when his lips touched mine, it was soft. Careful. Like he was asking a question only I could answer. I kissed him back. For a moment, the world disappeared. The noise, the rules, the guilt, everything fell quiet. And then I pulled back. My heart pounding, my breath shaking. I said, I don't know what I'm doing. And he looked at me, eyes full of something I couldn't name, and whispered, then let me show you. I didn't stop him. I didn't say no. A single moment. One kiss. One choice. And everything unraveled from there. Clothes on the floor. Hands in places they hadn't been. Familiar furniture suddenly feeling foreign. It didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel forced. It felt like something that had been waiting, patiently, for permission. When it was over, we didn't speak. He held me for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just laid there, listening to my heartbeat echo in a body that didn't feel like mine. I kept thinking, this should feel wrong. This should feel shameful. But all I felt was full. Not loved. Not whole. But full. And when he left that night, we didn't say goodbye. Just a long, quiet look. Like we both knew something had shifted. Something neither of us could undo. If you're still here, still listening, you already know this isn't just a story. It's a wound, wide open. Don't miss what happens next. Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold. We tell the stories you feel in your bones. The next morning felt empty. The kind of empty that isn't quiet, but loud, like the world is still spinning, but you're stuck, watching it blur past you. Ethan got dressed in silence. I sat at the edge of the bed, holding the sheet around me like it could shield me from what we'd done. He didn't say much. Just looked at me, half a smile, half a question. Like he didn't know if I regretted it or just wasn't ready to say anything out loud. Then he left. No kiss. No promise. No see you later. Just gone. I stared at the closed door for a long time. David came back 2 days later. He brought gifts. A scarf from the airport. A book he said made him think of me. He hugged the kids longer. Kissed me on the forehead. Asked if I missed him. I nodded. But inside, I was crumbling. Guilt doesn't come all at once. It creeps in slowly. Like fog. You don't even realize it's wrapped around you until you're choking on it. I couldn't look David in the eye for more than a second. Every time he touched me, I flinched. Not because I didn't want him to, but because I didn't know if I deserved it. I stopped wearing the scarf. I put the book in the back of a drawer. I started avoiding Ethan. I'd ignore his texts. Take a different route to pick up the kids from school. Pretend not to be home when he knocked. But he didn't stop reaching out. We need to talk. Please. I'm not okay either. I read them. Everyone. But I never replied. I thought if I stayed away, if I cut the cord, maybe I could fix what I'd broken. But the thing about guilt is it doesn't leave when the other person does. It stays. It burrows deep. And it talks to you in the mirror. Except, I stopped looking in mirrors altogether. I couldn't stand the woman staring back. The one who used to know her worth. The one who now carried a secret under her skin like a bruise no one else could see. And then, one afternoon, I saw him. Ethan. At a neighborhood cookout. Laughing. Smiling. Holding hands with someone new. My best friend, Rachel. She looked happy. He looked free. I felt like I couldn't breathe. He caught my eye across the yard. Held it. Just for a second. No words. No nod. Nothing. Then he looked away. Like nothing had happened. Like we hadn't happened. And I stood there, holding a paper plate full of food I couldn't eat, wondering. Was I just something he needed in the moment? Did he ever mean any of it? Or was I just the thrill of the forbidden? He moved on like nothing happened. I stayed frozen in what we'd done. I think about it more than I should. Not just what happened, but why it happened. Some nights, When the house is quiet and everyone's asleep, I lie awake replaying every moment, every glance, every word, every choice that led me to that line I never thought I'd cross. I ask myself over and over again, was I used? Or was I the one doing the using? Ethan once said, "Help me feel again." I remember how broken he looked when he said it, how lost. And I helped. I helped him feel something, even if it wasn't love, even if it wasn't right. But now I feel nothing. Not because I've moved on, not because I've healed, but because the part of me that lit up that night feels like it burned out completely. I wonder sometimes, what kind of connection leaves you feeling lonelier than before it began? Because that's what this was. A moment that filled me and then emptied me. I've stood in the bathroom more than once, staring into the mirror, rehearsing what I'd say to David if I ever confessed. I imagine his face, the silence that would follow, the questions, the hurt, and then I walk away. Every time. Because how do you explain something you don't fully understand yourself? How do you tell the man who shares your bed that you once felt more alive in the arms of his best friend? I can't. So I carry it. Quietly. Carefully. And sometimes I watch Ethan with Rachel. They hold hands in public. They laugh in ways we never did. They seem happy. But every now and then, when she's not looking, he looks at me. And I see it. Not longing. Not desire. Regret. It flashes across his face like a shadow. Quick. Unspoken. Real. Like he's remembering too. Like he knows something sacred was broken between us, and there's no fixing it. I used to think what we had was love. But it wasn't. It was recognition. Recognition of everything we were missing.